What happens when an autonomous intelligence is left in charge of a vault and tasked with the directive to determine the best way to choose an overseer? Experimentation, manipulation, and death follows close behind. On this extended episode of What the Vault-Tec, let's learn more about the terrible events that transpired inside Vault 51. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, welcome in. Today we'll be looking into Vault 51, one of the more interesting vaults in Fallout 76. I went deep into the lore of this vault and I pulled out every little bit of information I could. There was a lot of information. To keep this video from being over an hour long, I'm going to summarize the story and focus on what happened to the Vault Dwellers and just the key facts to keep the story moving. If you like this style of video, why not give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And with all that said, let's dive right in. Vault 51 was an experimental vault in the northwest corner of West Virginia. With 50 original Vault Dwellers residing within its walls, the purpose of the vault was to have an autonomous intelligence computer named Zax determine the most efficient way to select an overseer from the 50 Vault Dwellers, with little to no influence from the outside world. So what is Zax? Zax is an autonomous intelligence, not an artificial intelligence, with the ability to think for itself, make choices, and alter the very parameters of the experiment to ensure it meets its goals. Zax had complete control over the vault, down to the placement of pencils. It could not harm any of the dwellers directly, but it had the ability to lie, manipulate, and alter the vault itself to heighten emotions and to degrade the mental state of the vault dwellers. As I said before, the vault had 50 original Vault Dwellers from all walks of life. From baristas to senators, they were all brought in to participate in the fine-tuning of the overseer selection process. There are some key players I want to point out before we dive into the story itself. We start with Sergeant Bob Baker. He was a sergeant in the U.S. military. He was a man of honor and was invited into the vault to help guide Zax as it determined the best overseer selection process. And in return, Vault-Tec promised a spot in a different vault for his wife and children, probably a control vault which would have been safer for them. Helen Marks was a surgeon before the bombs fell and was brought into the vault as the doctor. She also doubled up as the coroner, unfortunately. Joel Chambers was a senator and he brought his wife Elizabeth into the vault with him. Carmen Green was a famous singer before the war and was young, talented, and attractive. Matthew Johnson was a personal trainer and was also young, talented, and attractive. Harold Clark was the CEO of Clark & Associates, a pre-war corporation. Harold took the identity of Cletus Ward, a plumber who never showed up with the other Vault Dwellers when the doors closed. Then we have Aiden Higgins. He was a lawyer and was used to the finer things in life. And last but certainly not least, we have Reuben Gill. His past profession is unknown, but he is marked as overseer in one of the first terminals. The vault was quite small, as it was only built to accommodate 50 Vault Dwellers. Everything was communal inside the vault, with a large cafeteria, shared bathrooms, and dormitory-style bedrooms. This changed over time, and we will get back to this later. There was also lounge areas, a library, and other entertainment areas to keep the dwellers happy. Like most vaults, the experiment didn't go as planned. Well, didn't go as any human planned. All the Vault Dwellers are marked as deceased in the terminal in the front foyer, except for the overseer, Reuben Gill. So what happened to the rest of them? To go over this, we're going to have to cover it in chronological order. On October 13th, 2077, Sergeant Robert Bob Baker arrived at Vault 51. He met with the Vault's autonomous intelligence unit named Zax. His main purpose was to help Zax complete its primary directive by guiding it and giving it a human perspective of the whole process. Sergeant Baker suggested a voting system when all the other Vault Dwellers arrived at the vault. Zax accepted this suggestion. Sometime between October 13th and October 22nd, the remaining 50 Vault Dwellers arrived at Vault 51 and were locked inside. It's important to note that all of the dwellers arrived before the bombs dropped. Remember, Zax has to determine the best selection process without outside influence. Everyone knowing that the bombs had dropped would have altered the experiment. We will revisit this when we talk about theories and conclusions, because it's kind of important. It was at this time that Harold Clark snuck into the vault with the other Vault Dwellers under the guise of Cletus Ward, a plumber who never showed up. October 23rd comes around and the bombs dropped. The dwellers were unaware of this, which made the outside world unknown to them. They had no idea that they had literally survived the end of the world. Between November 27, 2077 and January 23, 2078, the Vault Dwellers held multiple votes to determine the overseer with the same results each time. Everyone always voted for themselves or their designated candidate. None of the votes were conclusive, and one almost ended in physical altercations. Other attempts were made to choose an overseer, such as casino-style games of chance, with the one winning the most money at the end of the event being dubbed the overseer. This, too, ended in a brawl. Despite everyone being equals in the vault, some people were not happy with this arrangement. Some people thought they deserved more. So, on February 21st, 2078, Aiden Higgins finally took a stand against the injustice he felt being treated like all the other nobodies in the vault. He sends a message to Zax through the computer system and threatens to damage the vault if Zax doesn't let him out. In order to preserve the vault and the experiment, Zax decides it needs to do something about Aiden Higgins. Zax cannot outright harm a vault dweller, but it can set up a situation where the vault dwellers hurt themselves or others. Aiden was a lawyer and had no military training, so Zax knew he would have no idea how to handle explosives. So, Zax left out some explosives for Aiden to find and gave him the ability to make good on his threats. Sometime between February 21st to February 23rd, 2078, Aiden Higgins attempts to blow a hole in the walls of the vault with explosives provided by Zax, which resulted in Aiden blowing himself up. This was the first death in the vault, and it stunned the other residents. But by February 27th, the damaged rooms had been replaced by a brand new wing that included luxury suites and a new garden. This set the stage for Zax to sow discord. What breeds resentment more than jealousy? This started a series of manipulation and lies that Zax used to sow discontent and caused the vault dwellers to turn on one another. First, there was the talent show, held just after Aiden's death to help boost morale. Everyone participated, but Zax never informed the dwellers that by losing the talent show, they would also lose their new luxury rooms. This resulted in 3 women losing to the likes of Carmen Green, who, remember, was a professional singer. Zax encouraged violence by congratulating one vault dweller for beating up another. It also switched all of the coffee to decaf and woke the dwellers up at 5 a.m. It triggered a slot machine in the lounge to cause one person to win every time and the next person to lose every time. It let a housefly loose to annoy the dwellers, recording the sound it made to play through the speakers to add more annoyance to the vault dwellers. Zax spread lies about food shortages throughout the vault, and worst of all, it started providing weapons to vault dwellers who were not trained on how to use them. Several deaths followed. Nancy died on June 14th or 15th, 2078, from an apparent fall, but was later deemed a homicide, caused by strangulation. On July 30th, 2078, Sergeant Baker had to kill an armed vault dweller to ensure everyone else in the vault stayed safe. 4 deaths occurred on August 23rd, 2078, in the clinic from an apparent love square gone wrong between the Chambers, Matthew, and Carmen. Throughout all this turmoil and death, one thing stayed constant. Reuben Gill had a soft spot for Helen, the surgeon of the vault. It's referenced several times in terminal entries. On July 27, 2078, he finally got the courage to tell her how he felt, through an email. Real romantic, Reuben. Helen responded that she didn't like him like that, but she saw him more as a friend. Zax, seeing an opportunity, intercepted the message and responded to Reuben acting as Helen and made Reuben think that she loved him too, but explained that they couldn't be together as long as another dweller, Chris, was still alive. The lies and manipulation all came to a head on August 6, 2078. Helen was poisoned in the cafeteria. This struck the final match, and the vault exploded into physical altercations. Zax took this opportunity to drop weapons and armor for dwellers to find and use against one another. No one was safe, and dead bodies can be found all over the vault, wearing different styles of armor and using different weapons. And who started all this? Why, Reuben Gill, of course. Remember, he's under the impression that the woman he loved had just confessed the same feelings, and then was poisoned by another dweller. A vicious battle ensued, and at the end of the day, only Reuben Gill was left standing. He became the overseer of Vault 51. With the story out of the way, let's talk about some theories and conclusions I have. As we go through these, please feel free to pause the video and tell me what you think about these theories. And maybe you have some of your own that you want to add. Just be sure to be respectful to one another. All right, let's get into it. My first theory, Zax planned this from the beginning. From the first interaction that was recorded on October 13th, 2077, we learned that Zax's directive was to determine the best process for selecting an overseer. But Zax makes an alarming statement to Sergeant Bob. It says that Bob would currently make the best overseer, but as there are still other candidates, Zax cannot make that determination yet. From the beginning, Zax views the last candidate standing as the most fit candidate. meaning that all the other candidates would need to die. It's important to note that Bob could have stopped all of the horrible things from happening if he just realized how horrible Vault-Tec truly was and took Zach's statement at face value. Now, the question has to be asked, did Vault-Tec plan this? That's up for debate. I go back and forth on this one. I really don't think so. I think that they gave Zach's its directive, but they didn't give it enough detail, and Zach's being an autonomous intelligence just filled in the blanks. Was it vague on purpose, or were they just negligent? That's another conversation we can have. Again, I'm not sure either way. Third, Zach's is basically Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey, as he is able to lie to the Vault Dwellers. I think it's an interesting character that can think for itself and changes its perspective on things. It isn't an artificial intelligence, it's an autonomous intelligence. And we see that when it impersonates others, lies, manipulates, and uses basic human feelings and emotions against the candidates. I'll add that there's a little bit of spite in there as well. And I think it's funny that after Aiden blows himself up, Zach's replaces the damaged rooms with the exact thing that Aiden wanted, which was someplace nicer to live and some way to feel superior to the other nobodies in the vault. The next theory I have is that Vault-Tec actually invited Harold Clark to be part of the experiment. There are 3 holotapes that we find from Harold Clark. Again, that's the CEO who lied in order to get a spot in the vault and pretended to be the plumber. Harold admits in one of them that he heard about the vault and took it upon himself to investigate. I think someone from Vault-Tec, or maybe even Zach's itself, sent that information to Harold and he just took the bait. He also seems to be the only person to realize that Zach's is the one pitting all of the Vault Dwellers against one another, but he figures it out a little bit too late. He was killed during the battle on August 6th. I'll cover Harold in a short because he's actually a really interesting character. I just don't want to divert from the conversation, but he'll get his own short. Another theory I have is that I think that the fact that the Vault Dwellers were unaware that the world outside had ended really did work in Zach's favor. Had the Dwellers known that they had survived the end of the world, they may have bonded over this fact and maybe could have settled their differences peacefully, especially some of the smaller squabbles. Like, yeah, we're fighting, but it's better than, being outside. Hell, they may have even been able to combat Zach's from the inside and not fall victim to his manipulation. But they didn't, not for sure anyway, and Zach's used that to its advantage. And so ends the first experiment of Vault 51. But that's not where the story ends. Did you notice the Scorched walking around here while I was playing? And wait, don't we find the overseer of Vault 51 in an abandoned cabin outside of the vault? What happened to Ruben after he became overseer of a dead vault? I'll cover all of this and more in part 2 of this series. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Give it a like if you enjoyed the video, and hit subscribe if you want to see part 2 of this series. And until we meet again to talk more lore, stay healthy, stay hydrated, and I hope you have a great day. Bye everybody! All the other pets out to ensure no one else knew the full recipe. Spoiler alert, it was nuclear waste.